Hello and welcome to Radio Row here in San Francisco. This is day one of the real business as we are here trying to get a real flavor as to what Super Bowl week is like. My name is Shane Brennan, that is Craig Rigdon and Ben Costello, and we've been running around San Francisco all day trying to sort of do a few bits. I mean, I had that chance to see the Pro Bowlers have a bit of practice this morning. You guys also, some of lacrosse, some of them doing tugs of war, all those kind of things. I mean, it really is all kicking off here. What's really interesting about this is we were listening this morning from some NFL executives and people who've been running the Bay Area host committee, is that what's interesting is the fact they brought the Pro Bowl to San Francisco this year, which is made this week. Feel incredibly different. Usually they'd be off in Hawaii or coming back from Hawaii at this point. But you guys obviously had a good chance to see some of the players. I mean, did you say you ran into Brandon Aubrey and said his throwing was almost like ridiculously good?
He was on the field. His parents were beside us. They had friends and family visitors passes. But Brandon Aubrey and the Ravens punter were throwing absolute darts. They had a field goal set up with different points, and it was meant for them to be kicking, but they were throwing some, and they were throwing lasers that quarterbacks here in Ireland couldn't be doing.
What do you mean? You're comparing it to American football on a quarterback. No offense to the guys. I feel that's twice now on this with this trio. I've slagged off AFI quarterbacks. So if you're ready to want to come tear down my house, then I'm sure Ben will tell you.
I'm not getting thrown the pass this year now by my quarterback for saying that. But here we are.
I have to say, like I had a chance this morning just to see the guys warming for the Pro Bowls. I mean, you're just sitting there, and it's incredible what they have here. And that we're in this big convention center called the Moscone Center. There's another version of it across the street, which has this like perfect sort of arched roof area you can put a field underneath. I'm like, it's like it was perfectly made for playing flag football. And I don't know what it was originally made for, but it was like a sort of a specific stadium. But seeing Dak throw the ball around, Shedeur Sanders is there for the AFC. I know we were sort of questioning his inclusion in the AFC. But I just want to but before I get into kind of what I learned from, because I had a chance to speak to a couple of them, I'd like just a difference in like showmanship, because you go in there, right? And I'm wondering whether it is the same when you were looking at the guys going some of the other installations, and there's an NFL experience across the street here. I mean, the NFC guys come out. There's Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Juszczyk, Christian McCaffrey, all these kind of guys, and they're there and they're snapping the ball. And Puka Nacua, by the way, was up there. He was making sure he was posing for all the kids, taking cameras. He was making sure he was signing everything that was being asked of him. They're a real showman. And then they came up there and they do like a couple of sort of practice snaps, nothing too spectacular, but they're able to try to throw it in the air, give you something to look at. Nakua there catching and make sure he does a little twirl afterwards. The AFC guys come out. It's Shedeur, and it throws like a lateral pass going 5 yards in front of him. I'm like, come on. Like this isn't Cleveland anymore. This should be like the greatest show on earth.
We had a very different experience when it came to watching the tug of war. Micah Parsons might be the best trash talker I've ever seen live.
I can 100% attest to that.
He was unbelievable,
for someone who was very little involved, and he's injured and he was going around on the scooter. He was chin wagging. Yeah. Oh my God.
But it wasn't just the tug of war where they had the AFC versus the NFC guys, and that was incredible. And there was trash talk from both sides. Micah Parsons was trash talking during the punting competition.
Yeah.
He had his trash talk had no boundaries whatsoever, and it was absolutely amazing to just kind of see like the jovialness that they had between them. And there's obviously a camaraderie, regardless of teams there, but just poking the bear and just trying to try and get a rise out of them was just amazing from Michael. We saw everyone. We saw, Brian Burns and Jared Verse were both there. So Dion Dawkins, all the offensive linemen were watching, who weren't involved in the tug of war were all watching. Obviously, they had the friends and family there as well. And this is all stuff that people can do at the NFL experience as well. Like, this was all set up as live.
So what we saw was live there today was before the NFL experience opens up tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was the tug of war, and I think we were right beside the field, Shane. I don't know if you were able to see us, but because you were actually in there.
No, I was inside where the guys were practicing. It's a different room.
You were on the far side.
Yeah.
They were coming in and out as but this is part of the NFL experience where we took a look around at the exhibits that will be open tomorrow. They had an air passing game. They had a ground game where they had a load of tackling dummies set up for like running backs, and that was spread out throughout all the different exhibits that are going to be open tomorrow. So I presume they're going to be doing them amongst the crowd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a great experience for everybody.
But this is the thing. I mean, in the conversation in terms of how much people actually care about the Pro Bowl, they're like people are like looked at the decision to move it to San Francisco in the week of the Super Bowl and saying, well, they just don't care about the Pro Bowl anymore because it's not a match in the way that it used to be a match we could watch in the stadium in Hawaii every year. They've decided to do something completely different. But I mean, at the end of the day, what is the purpose of it? I mean, all-star games across all sports have been losing relevancy. In baseball, it matters because you get home field advantage, whereas the American or National League wins. But the All-Star break doesn't mean as much as it did in the 90s, for example, when it was a great thing that everybody tuned in to watch. So I think they're really starting to learn that actually the best thing to do with these things is try and bring them to where the people are, to where the action is happening, and the action is definitely happening here. And just try to have a bit of fun with it. So I don't know. I think there might be something in there that maybe changes the way that we actually look at the level to which the NFL actually respects the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't an NFL thing. This is a thing across the leagues where everything has changed with All-Star games and the fact that there are issues there in the terms of not only the voting and how the voting happens these days, but obviously what actually happens on the field. And you could say maybe it has been diluted slightly. But it didn't seem like it with the players when they were there. They were having a real good time of it. I understand the rationale behind a lot of why it's been dumbed down a little bit, but it is what it is. It's very difficult to try and understand what they would do otherwise. That's the biggest problem.
At the end of the day, from what we saw, it just seemed fun.
Yeah,
it seemed fun, and I can't wait to see. Obviously, we're getting wind of a couple of snippets from Micah Parsons and the guys, giving it to each other. But I can't wait to see for NFL Films to put out those, behind the scenes of the Pro Bowl and stuff like that, because I think it's going to be great content.
Well, it was interesting actually, sort of watching. I mean, there are some people that definitely is more at ease with this themselves in terms of either the position they're in. I had a chance to speak with Zach Bond. And he very really nice guy chatting, but he was like, look, the first thing he said out of his mouth is, look, I don't want to be in this game. I want to be in the Super Bowl. That's why I want to be here. So, whereas the other guys, I think, chatting to Dak, he just seems to be fairly. You can see on our social media, by the way, if you want to catch what Dak said and what Joe Flacco said. I'll get on to Joe Flacco now in a minute, because this is something I think he said was very funny that I didn't catch on camera, but I'll bring it here. But Dak seems to be just kind of, he just sort of, in a chill way, just sort of happy to sort of move around between all the people. I know obviously in Dallas you're subject to a different level of media scrutiny. But I was just had a chance to talk to him about how things are going with Marty Schottenheimer, and he says, look, it's the messaging is different, and you've seen that on the field in comparison to Mike McCarthy. Be interesting to know how the Mike McCarthy messaging will land in Pittsburgh. I want to bring on to Joe Flacco, right? This is just who he is, right? Joe Flacco he's too old to sort of go in with the PR thing. Remember, he was sitting in the hotel earlier on in the year, and he was like, lads, it's actually kind of nice to get away from the kids and all this. So usually when you ask, this is the thing with international media, right? At some point, we're going to ask most people, do you like international games? Would you like to see a game in Ireland, kind of thing, right? Because it's what we're interested in. We're also fishing around here to see if there's any news of a potential Ireland game in future, right? But a guy from Australia comes up and asks Joe Flacco, because he puts up a picture of the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Wouldn't it be cool to play there? And Joe Flacco's like, the logistics are going to be a nightmare. And he's, what's going on? It's like, they're going to have to play it week one, right? Are they playing a week one? And they're like, well, it's not been confirmed yet. He goes, I don't know, man. I remember when you used to play all those London games. It was meant to be so tired. Even if you get there on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you're seeing, completely ruined, man. So I don't know. I feel like they should be thinking more about the players in this thing, which was a very honest account, that I feel like more players actually feel like the way he has spoken. But like this guy from Australia being like, what does Joe Flacco think of the Australian game? And he's like, logistical nightmare. Oh my God.
That's a veteran quarterback who has been there, done that, and is he's ready to just play ball. And I think that's what he signed up for this year. And when he came in, he just wants to play ball.
He's stupidly tall, by the way. Like, you can actually see in the video, I am like this. So like seriously, like, it's ridiculous.
So that's actually a really good segue onto something that we found, and you probably found the same thing with Dak Prescott. Like, when you see these players on TV, it's very different than when you see them in real life, because Dak Prescott, one, is tall, but two, he's built as well, isn't he? Like, he is very, very stocky and wide, and like you just don't get you don't get the sense of like size until you actually see these players, and then the offensive linemen are another level.
All right, listen, we're just going to take a quick 30 seconds to readjust something. We'll be back to you right now.
This is Ireland. Rugged, wild, and endlessly captivating. A land shaped by history, where ancient castles whisper stories of the past. Where world-class links golf connects you to breathtaking landscapes. And where centuries of craftsmanship and culture are blended to produce world-class whiskies, savoured as music and laughter fill the air. But every journey with us is about people, place, and authentic experiences you'll never forget. This is more than a trip. It's the Dunes and Drams experience. Discover Ireland with us and make memories that will last a lifetime.
And our coverage here on the Irish NFL show here in Radio Row is brought to you in association with Dunes and Drams. We are delighted to be working with them to try and express how great Ireland is a place to visit. Whether you are interested in golf or not interested in golf, it's definitely a place to check out if you're interested in touring Ireland. But let's get on to what's happening here in San Francisco, lads. I want to talk about Jared Goff because I had a chance to sort of speak to him, and he was kind of surrounded by some Detroit media talking about something that was kind of flown on the radar in the midst of all the other coaching changes that has happened across the league. The fact that they've hired Drew Pretzig as their new offensive coordinator. He was, of course, in Arizona the last couple of years. I feel like him working with Jared Goff is a very different proposition to having to work under Jonathan Gannon with Kyler Murray. But it's funny. I mean, we talk about so much about quarterback power and the extent that it has. I mean, they asked him, like, were you involved in this hire? And he was like, I was consulted, but I wasn't in any interviews, which I think is fair enough. I mean, like, you need kind of player consent when it comes to who you're working to. It didn't feel like when he was chatting about it, and I had a chance to hear about it and chat about it, it didn't feel like it was anything overextending. But I mean, do you think that this is the kind of thing which Detroit needs? Because we talk so much about the way that their season has gone. And we might get a chance to speak to somebody from Detroit this week about this, but the way that their season has gone, the two coordinators leaving, I always felt that losing Aaron Glenn would actually be the bigger blow. But I mean, you just see what Ben Johnson has in terms of, I think Ben Johnson's more culturally in tune with what Detroit are in terms of always going for it. We see that in Chicago. I don't know if Drew Pretzig is the guy that's going to be like, do they need us another culture hawk to sort of get back in and make Detroit rock and roll again? Because that was when they were at their absolute best. And it wasn't as if their offense completely fell off the cliff this year. When they're absolute best, it was swashbuckling, it was Sonic and Knuckles, whereas now they very much focus a lot more on Gibbs instead of Montgomery. I'm just interested into your view as to whether those are like Pretzig's hire is the kind of change that Detroit need, because I would feel they need to go back to rock and roll, but some people maybe think they need to be a bit more technical and actually be more practical to win games.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that the Cardinals were able to do really well was get their tight ends involved in it. You know, you look at Trey McBride, you look at how many sort of catches he had and how they were able to do it that way. I mean, maybe that's what they kind of missed, was that, like you said, a ground and pound, but in the kind of passing game kind of way. They always say a tight end is a quarterback's best friend. Like that's the general rule of thumb, and maybe that's what Jared Goff needs. He just needs a best friend to be able to, you know, check down to if he needs to, or whatever they need to do. Like, they needed to do something. The loss of Ben Johnson was massive. We've seen what happened with the Bears and the upturn with the Bears, with what he was able to do there. They've obviously tried something. It hasn't worked. Fair play to them to be able to, like, you know, reset straight away after the year and go ahead from there. But it will be a big hire. Jared Goff is not getting any younger either, so, you know, they need to take advantage of that now while they have him. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year for them, and we'll see how that kind of rolls as we go through the offseason.
Good for Drew Pretzig as well to go from Arizona, where it was very inconsistent. You know, even when you say you've got Kyler to work with, half the time you didn't have Kyler to work with. So now you've got Jared Goff, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got David Montgomery, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Believe me if I'm wrong, Sam Laporta should be back this year, and that's your Trey McBride on the Lions. So for him to now come in and get access to all that, not including that O-line that needs a little bit more work after a couple of guys retired, but still a very strong unit. I think he's going to try and make the best out of what he has there, and because it's a great opportunity in Detroit.
I think it's a very good point that you make in terms of the consistency. Because look, one of the biggest problems with Arizona is the fact that they haven't been able to play have consistent quarterback play, and we still don't know what the future there is. So interested in that. Let's talk a little bit about NFL International, because there's some news coming out today. Firstly, that Madrid will host a game in 2026 and 2027. We're very excited to see that. But also, for the first time ever, the NFL is coming to Paris, and Charlie Smith's New Orleans Saints will be playing on our side of the Atlantic. Hopefully, Charlie's still kicking for them. We are fully sure that he will be, considering his contract situation and how well he's been playing. We don't know who the opponent will be. We don't know exactly when it will be. But Ben, I think it's fair to say that it was funny when the partnership between the Steelers and Croke Park first started. I spoke to Brett Gosper, who is the former head of World Rugby, who is now head of NFL Europe, or head of International, excuse me. And I was like, well, where are we in the queue for this? And he was like, well, we've already started speaking to the Stade de France and the Bernabeu about games. We've only just started with Croke Park. Yeah, somehow Croke Park managed to get a game before France. But I definitely think the experience we can get, rugby fans obviously very aware of what the Stade de France is, as are football fans, in fairness. And seeing the Saints come over, this actually might be a nice time for them to actually be on show, because the end of the season, they look like they're actually building into something. This could be a nice time for the Saints to be the ones to go from Nouvelle Orleans to Old Paris, I suppose, and sort of show off what they have in another country the NFL are now expanding into.
For any French rugby fans out there asking why they're throwing it forward, they're like, that the ball looks the same. Why is it going forward? That's perfectly allowed, and you can ask those questions all you want in the lead up to this game. As I said, we don't know who the opponents are, but the Saints are a very well known brand. They're a previous Super Bowl winner in this kind of era that we're in. They're an up and coming team. They've got, presumably Tyler Shuck, who is, I believe it or not, I think he was nominated for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he has been.
Offensive Rookie of the Year in a kind of short span that he had as that team starter. So they've got the possibility for some weapons. They've got a young wide receiver in Chris Olave that people love, and they've got an O-line that they're building. So I think they're going to put out a great show, and what they're going to put on the field is going to be great. And I think Paris is untapped ground for the NFL. We've with their milk in London for everything it's got. They do Madrid now for a couple of years. So the fact that we've got somewhere new that we can go and discover, and for the NFL to open a new branch to, is great.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we obviously had it in Dublin, and just the way that the whole city embraced it. I hope the Paris definitely does the same. I know Saint Denis is slightly outside of the city centre, but the city centre, of course, is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to throw it to you, because I know you follow the Saints closely enough, Craig.
Yep.
Here are the home opponents next year. So we're just obviously Falcons, Panthers, and the Bucks. Let's put them aside, because they don't really do divisional matchups internationally anymore, which I think is fair enough. The home opponents next year include the Cardinals, the Browns, the Packers, the Raiders, the Vikings, and the Steelers. So which one of those do you want to see?
I mean, the one that jumps out the most, because you always want to see the most exciting thing, is probably the Packers. You look at what they've been able to do. I know it fell off a little bit towards the end of the season with what happened with LaFleur, but they still have a very, very talented roster. Micah Parsons hopefully coming back. It would be great to see him go internationally and over there for that. There are rumours abound that it's the Browns. I know a lot of people have turned their nose up at that, but at the end of the day, there's a big culture change going on at the Browns right now. They have Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, whichever way they decide to go. They have a high draft pick. There's a lot there with the both of those. I do think when you look at the Saints, though, and what they were able to do at the end of that season with Kellen Moore and Tyler Shuck, and just be able to turn it around a little bit, and bear in mind how many players they were missing towards the end of that season, and they were still able to get something there. They were without Kamara. They had to lean on, I've forgotten the name of the Notre Dame, ex-Notre Dame running back that's there. Another team with a high draft pick there. Like you say, Chris Olave, there's a lot of work to be done there, but it is an exciting team. It's a young team. They're learning. Kellen Moore is obviously trying to put his stamp on things. I think it's going to be great. I think it will be a really, really good opportunity for the French fans to be able to see the NFL up close without having to come to London or go across to Germany and have it. And I do think that, and this is speaking as somebody who's watched it in London. Obviously, you guys have watched it in Dublin. There is a sense of pride when it comes over, and it's only right that with the expansion and the way that it looks, that they want to try and play as many international games as possible. If this 18, 19 game season.
But yeah, it was Robert Kraft said last year he wants an 18-game season and 16 international games. I mean, you kind of want France to be in that picture, even just financially speaking. It was because of the potential to build in there. I know NBA is a much bigger thing. Like the Bulls played in Paris.
Yes.
In the 90s, they're a French NBA player, so it's almost like they have another American sport to compete with in that market in the way that is not the case in Ireland. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it's nice to see that. I'll be interested to see how it looks, because obviously we were in Berlin. I feel like the whole city was taken over by it, as is the case in Dublin, as is the case in Munich. I'll be interested to know like the extent to which like they will put on a show in Paris.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for these international games, they designate a home team. So last year in Berlin, it was the Colts.
It's the Colts,
for the home team. But it very much was equally split on fans. Just because one team is designated the home team, like the Saints have. It
wasn't like the Dublin game. Dublin game was like Pittsburgh East. You know what I mean? That was a remarkably home
in
field.
Berlin, it was split down the middle. We were on a train full of Falcons fans, and we got absolutely mobbed. They were giving it socks. So it'd be exciting no matter what team they put down. Nothing to be said for the Raiders and presumed number one.
I was looking at that.
Pick as an option. No?
Put in Le Mendoza. That's exactly what you want to see. I was looking at the Steelers. I mean, would Steelers come over again? But I mean, would it be a betrayal to Ireland to go to another tricolored country? I think the Raiders actually would be nice. And the Raiders haven't played internationally in a while, have they? I can't remember the last time they played in Europe.
I couldn't tell you.
You know what I mean? Like there's a few teams that come over a lot. Like the Vikings come over in that list. The Vikings come over a lot. The Steelers come over recently. The Browns come over a lot.
Panthers were in
Germany.
Yeah.
So on the NFL international front, because obviously that announcement was made this morning. We were at a press conference this morning with Peter O'Reilly. Did Andrew Luck show up after I left?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Why?
So Andrew Luck showed up to talk about one of the charity initiatives that they've been doing. I can't remember the name of it, so apologies for that. But he did turn up, and it was really funny because Andrew Luck wasn't overly enamored at the fact that Stanford were having to give their training facility to the Patriots as a cult. Like, I think that hurt him, and he was very open about saying it. But you're right.
Keep forgetting he's at Stanford now.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Is he general manager there? Or is he
general
coach?
manager? A stone's throw down the way. So, I mean, in hindsight, it kind of made sense for him to show up. But when they turned around and said, "Andrew, look, I've never seen phones come out of pockets as quickly in my life." Everyone just had it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you think the CEO of the 49ers would bring that level of star power? And then you see Andrew Luck. That's the real guy. General manager of Stanford. All right, I think that's it, guys. I think we have to wrap up because we're heading to San Jose, so we're gonna have plenty more good content coming to you from the open night when all the Patriots players and all the Seahawks players are gonna be in the same place. It's the only time they're gonna be in the same place until game day next Sunday. So we will try to get that to you now. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.